All right, hey everybody. We are going live for East Side Wednesday night class. Usually give about 5 minutes or so for anyone to join in that is joining in. So, the awkward part of the show where you get to stare at me. Yeah. So if you just join in, go ahead and if you want to share something, like share a good thing that's happened to you this week or something you're excited about, go ahead and put it in the chat so we can share some positive stuff. It also lets me know who's hanging out and watching. So if you want to throw in something there, that'd be awesome. So we'll wait until about the 5-minute mark in order to get started. Wait for people to join in. So. About 3 more minutes and we'll get going. Wait for people to join in. About 2 more minutes, then we'll get rolling. All right, we'll go another minute and then we'll get started. All right, about 30 seconds. Okay. All right, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. My good thing for the week, I got to see some family this weekend. Spent some time up in Stillwater, and it was a lot of fun. So I had a good time this weekend. But other than that, just kind of been kind of a lazy week. Kind of just trying to find stuff to do is hard with all this stuff. So hopefully we're kind of on the back end of a lot of this though, and so things look better. So quick announcement. The Sunday morning, this coming Sunday, is going to be Senior Sunday, and we'll be taking some time to honor our seniors at another drive-in worship service. So we'll have another one of those on Sunday. By now, we kind of know the drill of how that's all set up, but we'd like to, if you're able to, show up and show some support to your seniors, and we'll enjoy some worship there together. Trying to think if there's any other announcements to make, but anyway, if you're just joining in, go ahead, and if you want to throw in something that is your good thing for the week, kind of lets me know who's hanging out and watching, so I don't feel like I'm just watching or teaching to a camera alone. So but anyway, we'll kind of get rolling here. We've been in this series of Uprooted for the past 4 weeks. I guess this will be the 5th week of it, and we'll wrap up tonight talking about the same topic we've been on a little bit in the story of Daniel. We've been talking about this difficulty of feeling uprooted just by different things that are going on. We feel uprooted whenever tragedy strikes, whenever something drastically changes the normal in our life. We feel kind of uprooted when we're inside of a culture that's not maybe the words like facilitating our beliefs and our faith, if we feel like culture is trying to push stuff on us that we feel is wrong or we believe is wrong. And we've also talked about just this need to be different in the face of all of that, and to also trust God in difficult times and difficult things. And tonight we're going to kind of wrap up this story about talking about how throughout this whole process of being uprooted, God is in control, and remembering that God is in control. If any of you that are watching, if you are interested in like strategy type games, maybe you can put in a comment like what your favorite strategy game is. Some people are really into chess. I know that Catan's really big for a lot of people. But if you like any of these kind of like strategy board games or card games or things like that, there's this need to kind of look forward, right? There's this need to kind of see the end goal, right? It's not one move at a time. Like I know, like if you're playing Catan and you're trying to, one strategy that a lot of people will take is that they'll start building a bunch of roads, right? And then you try to get the longest road. Yeah, like I'm not making it a secret of what you're trying to get, right? But building individual roads a lot of times seems kind of kind of tedious, and you don't get points for each individual one that you have, right? But you start out this game trying to get the furthest one that you can, right? And as you put individual pieces on, you don't get a point for each one that you have there, but you're building towards a goal that's bigger later on, right? You get a big time reward if you have the longest road or have the biggest army, and just different things like this that individually doesn't seem like there's much of a reward to it, but you're kind of in it for the long haul. You're thinking ahead to the end goal of the game, right? And that's kind of what this exile type of lifestyle, this exile type of thinking is like. It's thinking ahead to a reward. It's remembering the end. It's remembering the goal that we're all trying to get to. And sometimes the actions that we take up until that point can feel insignificant a lot of times, right? The times where we sacrifice something in order to be people of integrity, this pride that we sacrifice in order to forgive people, all this stuff, it kind of, it might feel insignificant at one point, but there's a goal in mind later on, right? We've been in this story of Daniel, and we're in Daniel chapter 1, and the verse that we're going to look at that's going to kind of set up the scene for it, set up the whole talk for today is Daniel chapter 1, and it's verse 21. I know that this is a really short verse, but I'm going to kind of explain the significance of it in a second. We got kind of through that story. We talked about how Daniel and his friends, they became wise and understanding, and they were put in places of power. In verse 21 it says, and Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus. I know that sounds pretty insignificant, kind of small, but I'll kind of explain that. We know from history that the first year of King Cyrus was 539 BC. That's about where it was in history. The exile that Daniel was taken into happened about 605 BC. What that means is that Daniel was in exile for about 66 years. Okay. I know we think about those guys and we think about the troubles that they went through. And when you just read through a story, it seems like it's kind of a short-lived thing, but it was 66 years that Daniel spent living in this foreign land, underneath rulers and powers and even religions that believe differently from him. This other culture that probably tried to push things on them quite a bit, right? Different things that they were trying to allow. But Daniel was in exile for a total of 66 years. And we've been thinking about some of these things that make us feel uprooted, right? This COVID thing that's going on, that definitely makes us feel uprooted. It's a huge lifestyle change, right? Everything's different. Everything's there. It's crazy, right? Can you imagine going 66 years of this? Like, that would be awful, right? That'd be like, it would drive everyone insane, right? There are people going crazy now, and it's been like 3 months, right? I don't even know that. I don't know how long it's been. Okay. But hopefully that's kind of coming to an end. Hopefully we can kind of see an end to that. Maybe you can think of other things that make you feel uprooted, like going through school. Like, that's years and years of your life where people are influencing you. Things are happening. Maybe you're dealing with a loved one that's hurting, or they're sick, or they are having trouble, right? And you can feel the pain from that. Maybe there was a traumatic experience that you had that you feel a lot of pain from, that it stays with you like for a long time, right? Sometimes feeling uprooted, it takes a toll on you, no matter what it is. It takes a toll on you. But I wanted to put this question out there, thinking about how Daniel spent the majority of his life in exile, right? What if your uprooted became your new normal? And just a what if question. Hopefully it doesn't, but what if? Like, think about that for a second. This exile life that we get to kind of live in, when we deal with difficulties, when we deal with a lot of hard things, what we want is for it to just end. Like, we want it to be over. We want to get past it. We want to go see people. We want to get out of the house. We want to go do stuff, right? We wish for our old normal very much, but the thing about being uprooted, the thing about being torn away from the old, is that it's not really your choice, right? You didn't choose this. You didn't decide to be put where you are. But Scripture, it'll give us kind of this. It gives us this lifestyle example when it comes to how we should live when things just feel out of control, when our life is crazy, right? Some people will refer to it as like the way of the exile. Okay, and it's kind of a lifestyle that Paul asks from us, that Peter asks from us. Jesus will ask it from us a lot of times, and you can kind of see prophets talking about this kind of lifestyle whenever they're talking about you're about to be taken away into exile, all this kind of stuff. They start talking about this lifestyle. We're gonna kind of walk through that a little bit, but I'm going to talk about a few different points. And the question that I want to keep coming back up in your head throughout these points is, how far does your trust in God go? Think about that. How far does your trust in God go? Because what if your uprooted became your new normal? Do you still have your trust in God, right? If the way that you want life to be is not the way that life is, do you still have your trust in God? Like, that's a question to be thinking about. How far does your trust in God go? We know that Paul in Romans, he'll talk about, he'll say to remember that every authority is given or is established by God. Okay, every power, everyone that's put in place there, that's something that was established by God. They're there because God decided that they could be there, and that was something that the prophets even believed. Whenever the people from Babylon were coming down to take them over, they said they would preach and say that God put them in power to judge Jerusalem. Like, it wasn't a very happy reason, right, for them, but that's why they believe that he's put in power. Jeremiah, there's a very famous verse from there in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, that says, "I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to." My brain just it's a popular verse, so I should know it, right? But I have plans to prosper you and not to fail you. I'm sorry, I sound very dumb because like I just had a crazy brain moment. But anyway, but before that very famous verse that for some reason is going completely blank in my head, he'll talk about building houses in this place that you're being taken to. He'll say, get married. He'll say, buy land, plant stuff, have kids, basically put down roots, seek the good of this city that you're moving into, which you would think would be counter to what somebody would want you to do, right? If you're being taken away to another land, it'd be like, okay, well, we'll be out of here in no time, right? That's what we would hope. But Jeremiah tells him, no, put down roots, look for the good of that city that you're living in, build houses, buy land, do all this stuff. And then after he says all that, God says, like, I plan to prosper you, right? That's kind of where it goes from there. But there's this way of the exile that we're talking about. And one we're going to focus in on, and I think sums up this lifestyle pretty well, is 1 Peter chapter 2. We're going to go 1 Peter chapter 2, and I'm going to read verse 11 through 17. Sorry, I was in 2 Peter for a second. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11 through 17. It says, Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles. See, there's the words right there. Sojourners, exiles, right? Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil and to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. And so I want to kind of dissect that a little bit and kind of get a little bit deeper into that. It's kind of, this is a good verse of talking about like this exile culture for Christians, right? In the book of 1 Peter, Peter is talking to a bunch of the people that are living in Rome, and just kind of throughout this, just throughout everywhere, like there was these people just dispersed to all these different areas within the Roman Empire, and Peter is trying to get this word out to them as they are living as exiles, right? They're living as people they're within this other different type of culture, and they have to figure out how to be Christians, right? They have to figure out how to be God's people. And this is some of the things that Peter says to them to live. So first being that I'm going to focus in on is abstaining from sinful desires. And you see that a lot in verse 11 and verse 16. We talked about how culture creeps in, how the influence of this world try to change our names, right? Like that's kind of the way we talked about culture. Like they tried to change Daniel and his friends' names to something else, like instead of who they were, tried to change their identity instead of who we are in Christ, right? But to live the way of exiles is not to just hide under a rock and avoid everything that there is out there, but it's to lean on the rock, right? It's not to hide away and pretend like you're not where you are. It's to live in the situation that you're put in, but lean on God throughout all of it, right? That's kind of the idea. We don't get to choose what happens to us, but we always have the choice of how we respond to things. I think that's important to remember, that we can't always control where we are. what we're doing, where we can and can't go, and when and if we have to wear a mask, right? We don't always control that, but we control the way that we behave, right? We can be honorable, we can be respectful, and we can reject sin in our lives, right? Paul will talk about in one of his other books to run in such a way as to get the prize. He's talking about running this good race, and the prize is this good life, one that you can be proud of, that you have honesty and integrity, all this good stuff. It's the prize is closeness to the creator of the universe. The prize is this eternity of peace and love. Like, we have all that stuff offered to us. But when we sin, we run like losers. Okay. Running like you want to win the race is doing the things that honor God. But whenever we give into sin, which we're always going, well, I just don't mean always, but from time to time, we are going to fall. We're going to mess up. We're going to do all that. But whenever we give into temptation, give into sin, we start running like losers. Okay. Do you have somebody in your family? Okay. This is a question for you guys to think about. Do you have somebody in your family that just runs goofy? Like they just have a weird run, like their arms flail strangely, their legs go off to the side. And if you do, turn to them right now and make fun of them. I think that's appropriate. But like, I think I told you guys this a few weeks ago, but I watched that home video of me whenever I was in 6th grade playing basketball, and I had the goofiest run like you've ever seen. Like, my feet looked like I was in concrete shoes, and my head was like giant. I don't know, like a big mascot head is what it looked like. And sometimes whenever we give into sin, whenever we mess up, we run like losers. Okay. We have bad form. We're not doing it the way that God wants. We're not running the race as if to win. Right? We need to straighten up our form and get it right. So, but when we abstain from sin in the midst of all this temptation, amidst all this influence on the outside, we're running the race like winners, right? My run hasn't changed. Thanks, Levi. But anyway, I'm shook now. Just kidding. But anyway, so moving on from that, going on to kind of my second point here, talking about this exile lifestyle, is Peter is asking us to be radically good. Okay. If we look in verse 12 and in verse 15, verse 12 will say, if I can find it, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. And then in verse 15, it says, for this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Silence the words of ignorant people. So it's kind of saying that, like, even whenever people accuse you of doing wrong, your deeds are going to say otherwise. Things that you do are going to be a good example, and you will glorify God with what you do, right? Your actions are going to silence the foolish talk of people that are trying to tear you down, right? That's what he's talking about doing that. Doing good silences the foolish talk of others that are around us. Talk does not. Okay, so if we talk like we're good, it's not going to change anything. But the actions that we take, if we are acting in love and doing good things, we silence foolish talk from others, right? We have this kind of goodness to us. Where it comes in, where Jesus is talking about this exile type of lifestyle, he'll say a few things that are pretty radical. Okay, they're pretty over the top, like radical love for people. He'll say that when you're asked to go 1 mile, go 2 instead, right? He'll say whenever someone sues you for your shirt, give them your coat as well. He says when somebody strikes you on one cheek, turn the other to him. It's just kind of this crazy response that Jesus is asking Christians to make, that you're going to be put in all types of situations, and you're supposed to overwhelmingly love people, right? You're supposed to overwhelmingly serve others, like to the point where they can't say anything bad against you, right? Like in those days, it was law that if you were a Jewish person or someone and a Roman soldier asked you to carry their stuff for a mile, you were required to do that by law. But after a mile, you put it down because you didn't have to go any further than that. But Christians, they would pick up the pack and they'd say, okay, we can go 1 more, right? And it's just like, now this soldier's like embarrassed. Now he's in the wrong. He's upset. Like, someone better not catch us. Like, you're serving me even further. But is that the question? The question maybe to ask on this point is like, is that your natural response as a Christian, right? Is that our natural way of doing things? That when we feel degraded, that when we feel like our dignity's been taken away a little bit, when someone's rude to you, when someone demands something from you that you don't want to give up, what's your reaction? Your natural reaction? Do you make a fist? Like, grit your teeth, make a fist? Or do you open up a hand and serve? Say, I got you. I can handle this. I'm going, like, I'll sacrifice of myself even more. Like, that's what Jesus is asking us to do. And it's radical, and it feels crazy, and it feels uncomfortable. Instead of making a fist, opening up a hand to serve someone. It's pretty crazy. But think about what a difference that would make in just the communities around us, where people would start saying, I think those Christians are kind of kooky, but man, are they generous. Man, are they helpful. Man, do they serve. There are stories that, or they're like papers that were written, or letters that were written by Roman officials back in the day where they were embarrassed because the Christians would come up and they would take care of the poor and the hurting and all of those, like the homeless, all those types of people. Like, they would be taking better care of them than the Roman government. So it was like embarrassing to them. It's like, man, like, they mean business. Like, they don't have very many resources, but they're taking care of our poor better than we could by ourselves. Like, it's just really cool what we can do if we decide that is going to be our response to everything, that we are just going to overwhelmingly love those that are around us, no matter how they treat us, right? We can't control what happens to us, but we can control what we do, right? How we respond to things. And it shouldn't be in a way that is spiteful or passive aggressive, but out of love, like we should. So, and the question to bring your mind back to is, how much do you trust Jesus? Do you trust that that's the right way to do things? And maybe think about that. The third way, and it's mentioned this in verses 13 and verse 17 through this, and it's this idea of respecting authority, respecting people that are in charge, respecting those. He'll say to respect those that are over your city, and honor the emperor, even like the leader of all of them. Like, have respect for this ruling power that you think is morally corrupt, and that you don't think they honor God, and they probably don't. They worship other people, right? But he's telling them to honor your emperor, honor your authorities, honor those that are in power. There are many things about Roman and Babylonian culture that didn't really line up with God, what God wanted. Right, these rulers, they had their way of doing things that didn't always fit with what fit for Christians, what fit for the Jews back in Daniel's day. But the interesting thing about Daniel's story is that he doesn't disrespect the king of Babylon. He doesn't blatantly say, like, he doesn't spit in his face, right, and say, I'm not going to serve you. I'm not going to do anything. Like, you're going to kill me before I do anything for Babylon. He lives in that city, and he works hard. He's honest. He has integrity. He does all these things. And it's very interesting in the moments leading up to the famous story of Daniel in the lion's den. It even looks like Daniel has a little bit of a relationship or a mutual respect with the king in that time. Like, he has some type of relationship, and a good one even. Daniel respected authority even though the people weren't godly that were in charge. And I think it's because he believed what many of the prophets, what Paul and what Peter believed. He held the same beliefs, and that is that all authority on earth has been given by God. All the people that have been put in power, God has put there for one reason or the other. The reason's not always clear for us, and the reason's not always, I'd say, good for us. Like those old days in the Old Testament, God put Babylon in power so that they could judge Jerusalem, right? They overcame them. They sieged them. They took them away. Like, they did all that stuff. It was judgment, and that's why he put him in charge. I'm not saying, I don't know if that's any of the purposes for anyone that's in charge today or will be in the near future or anything like that. But the purposes aren't always clear. But Daniel had enough trust in God to know that God has these people in charge for a reason. Whatever it is, even if it's not good for me, it's part of God's plan, part of God's purposes. And how much do you trust God, and do you trust him enough to go along with what his plan is over yours, right? Leaders may not always make decisions that we agree with or that we follow or that we understand. But this is what Daniel did. He respected the way that leaders decided to run everything, their empire. He worked hard within their system, within whatever they were needing to do. He worked hard through all that. But he knew where to draw the line spiritually. And I think that's where we need to understand that we need to radically love people. We need to give everything that we can into just being good, respectable people, that our deeds are good, and the people that mock us and the people that make fun of the faith, they're put to shame, or they are shut up by the way we do good, right? That's kind of the radical love we need to try to reach for. But Daniel knew where to draw the line spiritually. Whenever there was some kind of statute given that didn't line up with his faith, he spoke out against it. He didn't follow it. When the king offered his food, Daniel didn't eat it. When the king told him to bow down to the idol, he didn't bow down. Right? He knew where to draw this spiritual line, this moral line in it. But as long as it's not sinful, as long as it doesn't get there, we need to work hard in a way that shows respect, to whoever it is that's in authority, whether that's our parents, whether that is our boss at work, whether that is our governor, whether that is our president, anyone that is in authority. We need to have this certain level of respect for, but know where to draw the line. If we are respectful, good people, honest, hardworking, God's light finds a way to shine through us. If we just keep our moral compass on straight, don't give in to the sinful things, to radically love people, to respect our authorities, God's light finds a way to shine through us and through all that. So we just need to know when to draw that line. So we're talking about this exile lifestyle, and I say all that to say what this exile lifestyle does and what the purpose of it is. It's that we don't have to fight because the fight's already won. All right. If we are living this exile lifestyle, what we are remembering is that God is in control, that Jesus Christ has won the fight against our sin. He's died for it. He's condemned it, and he has redeemed us, right? That's the Christian hope. That is what makes it okay to just live the best life we can. We don't have to be afraid for Christ. We can love radically. We can speak up for the weak. We can be ambassadors of peace, but we don't have to fight because the fight's already won. We don't have to get all caught up in all of that stuff, in all the anger, the drama, that kind of thing, because the fight's already won. Jesus has already paid for the sins and the failures. So when we look forward, when we look at the end, the small pieces in the middle, they are significant in the way that we run, because we want to run like winners. We want to put those that mock us to shame, to silence them, but also in a way that is loving and glorifies God. We want to respect those that are in charge. We've been talking. I've been bringing up this story a little bit throughout this series about how Dale and I we moved this tree from one spot to another, and it was uprooted. Right, it was taken away from what it once thought was what it needed. Right, its resources, its nutrients, its place that it's been grounded, rooted. We picked it up. We moved it from one place to another, and we moved it because it wasn't going to have a chance where it was. Right. The gardener, Dale, not me, I was the assistant to the gardener. We picked it up, we moved it from one place to the other because Dale knew that there was a better place for it. The gardener knew that there was a better idea for it. We can get caught up in all these things that we think we're supposed to do, that we think we're supposed to stand for, that we think we're supposed to care about, and really miss what God really wants for us, and that's to be good, respectful people that shine a light to the world that's around us. And we're able to do that when we're stuck in places that we don't feel like we have control. And we're able to do that because we know that God ultimately does. And in the end, he'll take care of us, right? In the end, he has us. We need to trust that the gardener knows where he's going to put us, and we need to trust being in his hands. So even when we feel uprooted, we know where we're being moved, and we can look forward to that. So I went a little bit long tonight, but let's go ahead and we'll say a prayer real quick, and then we'll be done. So Father in heaven, thank you for this day. Thank you for blessing us and taking care of us. We're in a world right now where we feel uprooted. We're nervous and anxious and sometimes afraid of what might happen next, what people are going to do, what someone might catch, or what's going on. Lord, there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of nervousness, and we just feel uprooted. Life has been different. Life has been weird, and it's hard for us to know it. But Lord, help us to trust that you are in control. Help us to put our faith in you each step of the way. Help us to be good, respectful people. Help us to abstain from sin and avoid it, and help us to love people radically, Lord. Help us to be looking for ways to be serving one another and encouraging one another in this time where we can't actually see each other and touch each other and give each other hugs, and just help us to know how to be there for one another. And Lord, we thank you for your son. We thank you for the sacrifice he made on the cross, because we know that the moves in between are a lot easier to take. We know that we can be unafraid, that we can stand up for you in everything that we do. And we thank you for that joy and that freedom. And we pray all these things in your son's most holy name. Amen. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.